has a link to this. She also will have a link to a framework, and it's a Word document that you can download. So by the time we get done, if you're thinking this is great, I want to make a public relations communications plan while we're all kind of at home, a little isolated, you can download these documents, look at them. And then the last slide will have all my contact information. So if you're thinking you want to, as Lexi said, talk to somebody during these times of isolation, I'm here to talk to, but only about PR and marketing strategies, not about isolation, because we're all feeling it, I'm sure. So I call it the win. We all have focused on three things, probably the last 3 weeks, which is what's important now. So Lexi told you some of the things that I did. I've been impressed with some of the things I've seen some of the businesses in town do. I saw Liz is on the call. Cobblestone did I think you did a fantastic pivot to include family meals, which our family's taken advantage of. And even, I know Sarah's done it too, because I've stopped in her place, you know, finding meat, fruits, vegetables was really hard about 2 weeks ago. So thank you for quickly changing what you were doing. I know we took advantage of it, and others on this call probably did too. So with that in mind, now it's time to start thinking what happens next, right? So the R word's going to be thrown around, recession, and that's really scary. I have survived a couple of recessions in my business, so I'm hopeful I'll survive this one too, and I'm hoping everybody on this call survives with me. So what do you need to do? You have to keep communicating, promoting, and marketing. I stress, don't react and cut your budget. Why? Because what I know to be true is that companies that continue to promote and market themselves long-term survive recessions. I'm just going to be quiet for a second because I want you to read this. I pulled this snippet. So what I really take from this is the last sentence that talks about what happens to those companies that continue to market and those who failed. I found just some basic data when I was getting ready for this. So during the 90-91 recession, Pizza Hut and Taco Bell took advantage of low ad rates. McDonald's stopped marketing, and as a result, their sales fell, and Taco Bell and Pizza Hut took over. So if large corporations are doing it, us small companies in Boone County can do it too. So people think, you know, what should my budget be? Really, rule of thumb is your net. You should be investing 3% of your net into your marketing. So as we go along, I'm going to give you a framework, and it's really these bullet points that go into any marketing plan that comes together. So first of all, think about your goals, and we all want to make money, so don't make a goal, I want to make money, because that's just too obvious. That's the end game. Think about something meaningful. I have a client right now, Lexi referenced them, the one with the large scale event. And we moved everything online, and our strategy for the event that kicks off today online is to grow their social media following, because we are taking that large scale event and it will happen in October. So the more followers we can get now, the easier the marketing will be in October. So it's strategically putting those things together. And I really want to stress here, you know, make those things thoughtful. Spend a few days, ponder them. Really, where do you want to go once we're all allowed to go back outside and go to see Diane and Lexi at after hours? What are you thinking about? I'm glad that makes you happy, Message. What are you going to say to people? I know what my message was 60 days ago. My message has changed to what we're talking about today, because saying, hey, you know, public relations should be simple and easy and fun really falls on deaf ears right now. Think about your audiences. Things have changed. I joined a call of independent PR practitioners yesterday. There were a lot of folks in the tourism industry on that call, and they're in a lot of pain. One gal who's the PR director at the aquarium in Clearwater, and she said they have had to change their marketing strategy from fly-in to drive-in in the last 30 days. And I guess they have a huge renovation going on. So pretty scary time for them. And then we'll talk about the tools, how to communicate. And I'm going to give you just a quick and dirty how to build your timeline, and then think about your budget. So I'm going to pause for a second because I want to emphasize if there are any questions. I know there's a chat box, and Lexi, if you could kind of flag me if something pops up. And even if we get to those at the end, I just don't want anyone to lose their train of thought. So when folks like me talk about messaging, there are things that go into your message, and I use vowels to do this because without vowels, we have no words. Without a message, we can't communicate to our prospects, our clients, our staff. Even if you have, we talked about this yesterday with Zion and Lexi, even if you have a staff of 2, Lexi and Diane have to talk to each other. So now it's a little awkward because apparently they're not in the same room together where they can shout across the room. So they have to strategically think about that. So authentic with proof, what that means is you can't say, I am the best, I'm looking at Bob, I'm the best coach in Boone County. May be true, may not be true, but how do you prove that? Do you have client statements? Have you done a survey? Why do you know that to be true? I always say things have to be easy to understand. We all tend to use a lot of jargon in our own industries. I don't understand your jargon. I can guarantee you don't understand my jargon. So let's simplify it so we all understand each other in simple communications. Put it in writing. Something magical happens when you put things in writing. It becomes more real. And then you have to communicate it with your staff and your team. They are your word of mouth on the street. They need to be sharing what you want to be said about your business. And then I always talk about proof points, and that goes back to that authenticity. If you make a broad statement about yourself that sounds boastful, do you have testimonials? Have you done a qualitative survey? That means calling customers and getting information about your business. And then you're going to use it over and over and over again, because it takes up to 7 times for someone to hear your message for it to actually stick. So people are thinking a little differently right now. First of all, we're all focused on the family. We really, I need to move a couple people here, sorry. People are thinking about the customer experience. So if you're looking at, I say don't cut the budget, but if you need to trim it, don't trim the budget when it reflects the customer experience, because I will remember that a year from now. And, we all share with our friends the experiences that we've had. And I know everyone's panicked about trying to grow their customer base, but really you need to love the ones who are with you right now. So really focus on your current customers, appreciate them. I know I have been over serving those customers because it's just been needed right now. And we're all in a position where we need to solve, not sell at the moment. People are working from home. It's a weird environment, and everyone's trying to get through it together. And then start thinking about your competition and how maybe you can win some of their clients. Maybe some of those customers of those competitors aren't particularly happy. Well, now's the time to have those conversations and really start thinking about long-term, how to grow your customer base, but keep the people who are loyal to you. Are there any questions before I keep going? Thank you, Lexi. So really, there's a lot, when I say tactically, that you can be doing. Internally, we all know there's staff meetings, company meetings. You can do emails, you can do newsletters. Externally speaking, we're talking social media, websites, Google, pay-per-click, SEO, blogs. I mean, it's just a very large world of tools out there. So think strategically about the toolbox. Like Diane said, one of the goals of the county chamber is to connect all of us. Well, now we're in a time that we can't stand in a room together closer than 6 feet. So she never thought, she told me yesterday, that we'd all be Zooming together on a Wednesday morning, but here we are. And it seems to be working. Shake your head, Diane. Yeah, this seems to be working. Yep. So, so this has become a great tactical tool for her to use. So the to-do, the date, the responsible, the status, sit down with a calendar and say, what am I going to do? When am I going to do it? You don't have to be responsible for everything. There are chances, there are other people who work in your office, work with you. Let everybody take a role in a piece of ownership. The status column is just simply when you get back together to hold each other accountable. The piece that I do not talk about on here is we do measurement reports for our clients. We look at things like, hey, we wrote blogs this month. Did anybody read those blogs, or are we just writing blogs to write blogs? You can get into Google Analytics and you can see the pages that people are looking at every month. Google Analytics is so data rich that you spend hours and just, you know, funneling down to look at things. Social media, you can look at data reports to see, are people looking at your posts? Which posts do they look at more? Which they look at less? So that you can give folks on social media what they actually want instead of just having them scroll right past you. So there's a lot you could be doing with this framework now, but Diane and I also talked about a list of just all those little low-hanging things, and that's on this next slide. So I'm kind of curious, I'm gonna let everybody quietly read this, but then we're curious, what have people been doing? So I'll shut up for a second and let you read. So Diane, I know you had a conversation yesterday with Jeremy, and I think he's still on here. I only get a couple people up on my window here. But I know, Jeremy, you have been working on some of this, and you know, you made a nice pivot like Cobblestone did. So I'm gonna kick it over to you just to impart some words of wisdom to the folks on this call.
All right, well, can you hear me or no?
Yes.
I can hear you great.
All right, awesome. So I don't know about words of wisdom, but I'll tell you basically my mentality on this. We got back, my wife and I got back from a trip to Florida. We flew back in on March 11th. March 12th was her 30th.
Hey, Jeremy.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you just want to, if people don't know who you are?
Oh,
you
sorry. Okay.
Thanks.
My name is Jeremy. I'm the owner of Nameless Catering Company. You might you see our billboards or some of our cars driving. If you see a black Suburban going 90, that's probably me. But we do a lot with the Boone County Chamber, a lot of various chambers, things like that. So some of you may have had our food, but if you haven't, hopefully you will sometime soon. Obviously, our business is revolving around people gathering and eating together And that currently is illegal. So that makes it rather challenging. So as I was saying, you know, my wife and I got back from Florida, and on March 12th and 13th, basically every order we had in our system canceled for the next, well, it started for like a 2-week period. And at this point, we're now continuing to see cancellations into May. So we basically lost all of our sales in a 48-hour period for the next several weeks. So after the initial panic set in, you know, you go through those stages of grief and all that, right? After the initial panic set in of, you know, just drinking a bunch and trying to cope with things and figure things out. Once we all sobered up a little bit and got some water back in our system, you know, I talked with my team, and we figured out, we did a really quick pivot. We knew that for us specifically, almost all restaurants or catering companies right now, what they're doing is they're delivering, you know, 4-person meals, 4 or 5-person meals delivered hot and fresh to you, or you're picked up hot and fresh. For me and my business, that's not profitable because I don't have 17 Fazoli's locations. I've got 3 commercial kitchens in the greater Indy area. I've got Lebanon, Anderson, and Indianapolis. So for me to deliver one $30 meal to Carmel from Indianapolis is not profitable for me. I can't do it. And people aren't really willing to come to drive downtown. If you don't live downtown, they're not going to drive from Carmel to Indianapolis to get a meal. So I was like, okay, well, that doesn't work for me. So I said to my business partner, I said, you know, we've got to rethink this. We've got to do what other people are doing, trying to solve that problem, but we have to do it better and smarter. And so what we determined was people want 4-person meals. They want family meals, but they don't necessarily want to go out every single day to get them, you know, for just the hassle of it or the fear or whatever. So what we did is we produced frozen 4-person meals. So I'm not, you know, like I'm not talking Stouffer's dinner. These are like real chef created meals with fresh ingredients. And so for me to deliver 10 $25 meals to you, so we were able to come in at the price point lower than almost all the restaurants. But I said, I'll deliver them for free if you order 10 of them. Well, it's definitely worth me driving to Carmel to drop off $250 worth of orders. It's not worth it to drop off $30 worth of orders, but $250 worth of orders, it absolutely is. We launched that in the first 48 hours. We had $13,000 in sales on those frozen meals, which, you know, for perspective, in the month of March, we're generally running between $60,000 and $70,000 a week. That said, almost all my expenses are variable, you know, food, labor, you know, utilities, all that kind of stuff. So with such a massive variable expense company, I was able to, you know, cut down my variable expenses overnight as my sales dropped overnight. And so that actually made it to where, you know, we were able to sustain that, and those sales have continued to come in. We also looked for opportunity of who still needs to eat. So 3 or 4 days ago, we rolled out, you know, serving hospital staff. So like these hospital staff, they still have to work. The hospitals are totally overwhelmed right now. The cafeterias can't keep up. They're having supply issues. I am having supply issues. You know, like Piazza Produce, they're closed on Tuesdays and Thursdays now. You can't get a produce order. Well, I can't. That means everybody can't, because Piazza's closed. They're the biggest and the best in the city. I don't know about the best, but they're the biggest. So it's, it was really hard. So we just said, okay, well, someone like Diane might say, you know what, my husband, my son, my daughter, my son-in-law, my friend, my neighbor works at this hospital or that hospital. So I want to send them a meal on my behalf. So we allowed community members, Hoosiers, to go out and sponsor these meals. So you can send a meal to a hospital on your behalf with a letter or a note or a picture of your family or what have you. And you know, Diane's going to pay retail for me. So it's going to keep my team working and keep us afloat. But she knows that she's doing something good for the hospital staff, and the hospital staff are getting a solid meal. So really it benefits every single person involved. And we launched that 4 days ago, and we're up to about $9,000 in sales. And those are still coming in every single day. We're booking anywhere between 5 and 10 of those a day. So that's kind of what we've done to pivot. I think the overarching thing that I guess I'll end with, because I know I'm not supposed to talk forever. I had a call with my team a couple days ago, and basically those of you that might know a guy named Doug Carr, he's Douglas Carr. He's pretty well known here in Indy anyway, as far as doing internet marketing and blogging and videos, things like that. He put a post up on Facebook that really resonated with me that I, you know, totally agree with, and I kind of, you know, sent it off to my team as well. If you come out on the other side of this and you have any project in your company that's not done, any strategy session that's not done, any cleaning that's not done, any inventories that aren't done. If you're coming out of this with anything that's not done, you're an idiot. And you shouldn't own a company, because you have time now. You are a small business owner, or you're an executive, and you have nothing but time. We're all sitting around doing nothing. I mean, I'm in my kitchens because that's just kind of what we have to do right now, because we're putting out food. But even still, I have a hell of a lot more time than I've ever had before. So you need to be focusing on what are the things, like, Rae, that was a great deck. I mean, that was really a killer deck. I mean, just because that was spot on. Like, this is the time when, even if you're one of those people that says, well, I straight up don't have the money to spend on marketing. Like, I appreciate what Rae's saying. I just don't have the money. Okay, fine. I get it. That's fine. But that doesn't mean you can't be doing other things. And it doesn't cost any money to reach out to all your clients. It doesn't cost any money to set up an email distribution list. Even if you can't afford MailChimp, which, by the way, is like $3 a month. But even if you can't afford it, it's fine. Gmail's free. Just send it. Everything. A lot of the stuff that she put in this presentation doesn't cost any money. So you can stick your head in the sand and wait for the storm to pass, which it will pass, by the way. We're not going to be doing this forever. I mean, I think that's a main thing to remember, is that this is not going to go on forever. It might happen again at some point. So I think maybe one of your strategies should be what happens in 2021 when there's another shutdown, because this is going to happen again at some point. Not saying hopefully not soon, but it will. So that could be one of the things you work on. But you can either stick your head in the sand and wait for it all to pass, or you can, just get up early, stay up late, and just rock out, and know that you at least can put your head on your pillow at night knowing that you tried everything you could during this time. So that's kind of how we pivoted. That's the mentality that I have. Which, Rae, I mean, that's, like I said, it's a killer presentation. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. So.
All right. I also, as I was preparing for this, sent a note to a few of the folks I work with in the media and who sell ads. So folks I've known for a long time. So I want to stress, while we're all sitting here, a little panicked, a little freaked out. We don't know what's going to happen next. We've had to, Jeremy, Liz, and Sarah had to change our business model for the short term. These folks are hurting too. Now here's a tip to take away. If you're thinking 60 days from now, you want to come out of the back strong and advertise, now's the time to negotiate those rates. I have an email back from Kathy Linton, and she runs the papers here locally, The Reporter and the Times Sentinel. Brian Kelly is the publisher of The Current. And then I have for years worked with a radio rep at WTTS. All three came back with, if you call me now to try to negotiate rates, it's a better time than if you call me 60 days from now, because everyone's going to be calling them. So I can't stress enough, like Jeremy said, now is the time that you have the time to strategically think through, what are my goals when we come out of this? Because chances are your goals aren't the same now as they were in December, when we all looked at the new year and thought, these are the things that I'm going to try to accomplish.
Hey, Rae. Oh, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
JD has a question. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see it, but I'll just read it out to you.
Thank you.
He said, many of these things look like they need a good amount of content. How would we go about creating good content?
I'm curious, can JD unmute? I want to know when he says content, when he means by content.
Sure. And thanks, Rae, for putting this together. So we are a B2B manufacturing business, so CapEx stuff, large expenses. We also have an engineering firm. A lot of what we do is proprietary and under NDA. And so there's really only so much of our content that we can share on blogs, Facebook, and any kind of marketing. And then it just becomes a little repetitive. So when I think it's a previous slide that you had up there, some of the free things. Yeah, so like just when we're looking at blogs, or if we want to start looking at advertising things, even like Facebook, it's really hard to convey what we do.
Yeah, there is somebody on this call who actually, he's in a new company, but was a former client of mine. And Andy, if you want to jump in, feel free to. You know, the work that they did is heavy B2B. They do importing and exporting globally for clients. You probably are familiar with freight forwarding. So what they talk about isn't really, you know, if you think write a blog for the chamber, it's not going to work. But starting back in January, because obviously China was hit hard December into January, which affected supply chains, we started putting out information to their clients about what was happening in China. Some of it was little snippets about things that folks in China were telling them. We didn't, you know, name names, but it gave some perspective as to the situation. So it didn't get into proprietary, but it got into that higher macro level of what was happening. And I was actually surprised. Sometimes you feel like, am I just talking to an empty room of folks as we put this information together? And what we found is really high email open rates. And then on social media, if we linked back to some of that information that we put out, we were getting thank yous. The sales team was getting thank yous for sharing this information with me because it was helping people think a little differently. And really, when you think about that, I mean, we pumped out a lot of information. So, Andy, I don't know if you had, knowing that you've experienced some of what we had done, if you want to. Andy's now at Reindeer Logistics here in Zionsville, but he worked for this other company.
Well, you know, I still keep a pretty close tab on the international side of things since I moved freight for 30 years. I think during this time it was really important to communicate what was being, you know, what we were hearing out of China, especially from our customers or the suppliers, so that we could communicate directly with the customers here in the US, because, you know, information out of China isn't always plentiful. You don't always get the full story, especially from the suppliers, because they don't want to lose your business. But then there was a lot of other, you know, things to consider, voided sailings out of Asia. Then all of a sudden there was no passenger cargo capacity. Everything had to move on a freighter because they canceled all the passenger flights, which a large majority of your freight moves on. And still today, things are starting to come back to normal out of China. But then here into the U.S., there's no passenger flights yet, so it's, you know, cargo only. So I think it's just having that key line of communication to your clients, especially on a, you know, the business to customer side. You know, letting them know exactly what's going on. We're the subject matter experts, and they depend on us, you know, to answer the questions. And then when the going gets tough, they come to us because they can't get the answers, and it just solidifies your business relationship for the future.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, in your case, JD, is probably a lot different than, you know, as Sarah's case or Liz's or Jeremy's, because they're B2C. You're dealing with some content that's, you know, not, hey, come buy my wine, come get a meal, I'll bring it to you. You know, those are just very immediate needs. So what you're doing is probably, like Andy said, a little bit more thought leadership driven. You're probably very aware of things that are happening that your customers aren't aware of. So it's, you know, even on this list, just contacting people to get a pulse of what's on their mind right now would probably be a good way to spend your time. And, you know, I think people appreciate when you just reach out to them and ask, how are you doing?
Hey, Ray. Yeah, just I sat in on a Lencioni WebEx yesterday, and his basic statement was, don't underestimate the power of a simple message to your clients, whatever that message is, because they can't take too much information anyway at this point. So just knowing what's happening in your market and sharing that with people, just the fact that you're doing it and keeping it simple, like Ray said, don't assume they're not watching, because they are. So.
Yeah, and I think I like that idea. I think I as you guys were talking, tried to clarify my thoughts. When does a message in marketing, repetitive messaging is good for branding? When do we need to transfer that to, at what kind of marketing or blogging or whatnot do we need to transfer to fresh content instead of the same content?
So
Does that make sense?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'll go back to this B2B client that we've referred to. Their content, and I'm happy to connect with you by phone after this, JD.
Sure. Yeah.
Talk
Sorry.
a little bit more granular. But you know, their content, and I'll send you to their blog, JD, is you know, ranges from what, you know, last week they were panicked because you know, everything was shutting down and they were getting phone calls. You know, are you still open? Oh my gosh, I have, you know, freight on the water. So very simple message, hey, we're still open, we're operational, we're servicing you. But today, you know, I put up kind of a nicer blog and put out some other content, because when we were all allowed to be outside and travel 6 weeks ago, they visited the port of Charleston in South Carolina and have some beautiful pictures and some information that they wanted to share. So, you know, it's, as a thought leader, I don't know your industry, so I can't say these are the things that I would recommend that you do. But I know there are probably a lot of things you could do, even though some of it's proprietary. There's probably plenty of information to share. So I do want to say, because it's just this really weird time, and I know everyone's looking for solutions. On the end of this slide deck, this is my contact information. There's 2 links there. One goes to this PowerPoint deck. The other one goes to the Word document I referenced if you want to take a stab at, hey, I'm going to try to put a communications plan together for myself. If you want to book an hour of time by phone, or we could even Zoom, to talk it through and get some, you know, consulting time in, just contact me. We're all working from home. We all have some extra time. And we'll get on the schedule together to kind of, like I said, JD, talk a little bit more granular about things, because in a space like this, I know you don't want to share in detail. So are there other questions? All right.
Does anybody have anything, you know, if it isn't questions, that they'd like to share, similar to how, you know, Jeremy did? We're all here to help, you know, one another. And somebody's ideas might not be specifically relevant to another business, but I think we can all learn from, you know, how individuals have pivoted, some of those success stories. And, you know, I've learned, even though we're a nonprofit organization, I have taken a whole page of notes in my mind saying, oh yeah, we need to be doing that. Just wait, Lexi, we'll talk about that to-do list later. But, you know, I think we have a lot to learn from each other, and that is one of the main reasons for these webinars. So feel free, you know, to unmute yourself and speak. We'll try to do that kind of one at a time, so we're not talking over each other. But I encourage you to do that, because again, I think we have a lot to learn from one another.
So it's Sarah here from the Cork and Barrel. So we definitely pivoted our business quite a bit with changing what we did, since obviously being a boutique wine bar doesn't really fit with what's going on. So we pivoted, and we are doing delivery for any wine, beer, or spirits that we currently carry. And then we also are doing Piazza produce and pantry items delivery as well. So you can order directly from Piazza, but you have to go to Will Call and pick it up. So we're giving the option that you can order through us, and we will actually do the delivery from that. And we'll be able to get you some other items besides what's on there. So we're really just trying to help people who really want to stay in and not get out, especially those parents with a lot of kids, or just really stick to that quarantine part of it, or stay at home. So I know it's still tough to still find some produce and meats out there. So people are really appreciating the delivery. We've got a lot of repeaters, which is awesome from that standpoint. And from this, we've gained a lot of new customers, but a lot of new advertising from it as well, from people finding out about us who didn't know we were here. So I see a win in that aspect of it, that, yeah, it's definitely different than what I had anticipated doing during this time, but it's really helped the community and people have really appreciated that aspect of it. So, you know, it's some of those things that you really have to think about how you're helping and what we can do to help build our community. But, you know, how do we also change our business and what can we change our business to in the meantime? It really gave me a lot of new ideas of what to kind of work on within my business though, and what we can offer going forward. So I think it's been a, you know, a great experience for me.
This is Bob. I had a question for Jeremy if he's still on the line. I don't know if he is or not, but if he's got, I don't know if his webpage is updated with the offering that he just mentioned in terms of grouping meals together, et cetera. But if it's not,
he had to do a delivery at
that's
St.
fine.
V. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have or if it's on his website, or if you guys have like a one pager or whatever. I'd love to get that out to my neighborhood, because I'm also thinking that could be a neighborhood thing, that if all my neighbors got together and he could make 5 deliveries instead of 1, that'd be pretty cool too. So
I will ask him for that. And
okay.
we, and all of you on here, if you're chamber members, so, you know, Sarah, Liz, all of that, send us any updates. Lexi's done a great job of promoting via social media, but we are looking at compiling specific information so we can have that in one document. We've done that where we've listed all the, you know, phone numbers, and people have been able to print off businesses that are delivering. But I know that the offerings have changed. So, you know, that, as we all know, information changes and the business offerings change. So please reach out to the chamber and give us that updated information, because we do want to be a marketing source for all of our chamber members.
So I'm going to be a little selfish here. So on behalf of a client, one of the clients that we work with is, I don't know who all is familiar with this, Dutch Artists Association. Each year they do a huge open house at the end of April, which obviously has been postponed. Starting today, we have taken it to an online open house. So every day on their social media, a different artist will be featured. So if you're just looking for something fun to look at, a little bit less coronavirus in your social media feed and more art and something, you know, happy, follow them on social media, take a look. These artists are, I think they're pretty awesome. They're spectacular people. The building had to close down, so they have lost access to their studios, lost access, you know, we've been able to pivot and sell and get creative. A lot of these folks don't have home studios, so they're depending on this month to try to promote themselves and push out a little bit of sales. So I would appreciate the help of sharing and liking and commenting, and I know they would too. So that's my selfish plug.
Does anybody else have anything to share? Ray, do you have anything else that you'd like to go over on kind of your webinar presentation?
Lexi, I know at some point you're going to push out those links, but I left them up just in case anybody wanted to take a screenshot, grab them now. And then obviously my contact information is there, so feel free to, you know, if you want to set an hour appointment by phone, just shoot me a note and we'll get it on the calendar.
And Ray, did you say that that hour appointment was complimentary at this time?
Yes.
So I encourage you all to take, advantage of that. Again, as Rae said, there is some time. And so, I even know as an organization, and I know we have some other nonprofits on this call. So if you guys, anything you want to share too, how as a nonprofit organization, that isn't open to, our doors aren't open to the public, but we are most certainly working full-time plus, we encourage you to share that also.
Hey, Diane, can I shamelessly plug my Friday one?
Yeah, go ahead. I know Lexi gave a little bit of an overview, but go ahead and
No.
share additional if you'd like.
No, it's just more, I'll call some of the discussion we were just having, especially on pivot, and just how to pivot or think about pivot and the things to think about in terms of that. And we'll be covering some of that as well. So it's just, this is a time to set and take a moment and actually slow down and think, which seems opposite of, a lot of people, there's nothing wrong with action and taking action, and people got to do what they've got to do right now. And that is perfectly understandable, but it is also a time to actually stop and slow down and take an hour of your day or whatever and actually jot. And what we're going to do is provide you a little bit of a tool to do that, of just how to jot your thoughts down and get them in a framework that you can then do something with. And so we'll do that on Friday. But same thing as Rae, if anybody needs, anytime, just book me on Zoom or send me an email or LinkedIn or whatever, and we'll book some time and talk through things as well. So everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah.
It is, and every business is so different. And I think, there's businesses, especially those business to consumers, that I know it was like jumping into the fire head first, even, with the chamber, knowing our members, our businesses and organization need help. How are we going to best help them? So as a chamber organization, hopefully you guys are seeing all that information. I know it's a lot. I mean, there's days I don't do anything but really sort through emails that I'm receiving from, the U.S. Chamber, the SBA, the Indy Chamber, all of those entities. Everybody's doing a great job of information, and I know it's very complicated for all of you. So those of you that are applying for SBA grants and loans, if you have additional questions, make sure you look at that email yesterday. U.S. Chamber did put together a good document that was more user-friendly. I know they still adapt, they're adapting applications. I know it's difficult. I know it's cumbersome. And I know it's scary. And all that information is evolving on a daily and a lot of times hourly. The chamber does not have all of the answers. I wish I had an answer for everyone, but what we can do is connect you with folks such as Rae or Bob, or I do have a regional SBA gentleman. In fact, I just got an email from him. He is willing to talk to all of you. And I know people have been on hold, through the whole federal SBA. So if you're having difficulties and you need to talk to someone, I can connect you with him. And hopefully he could give you a quicker response than just being on hold for 5 hours, because I know that's happening to some folks. But again, I know we have chamber members and non-chamber members on this webinar. I hope you all are seeing a little bit glimpse of really what the Boone County Chamber's mission is. That mission, as I said, hasn't changed, just how we're having to provide information and connections has pivoted a little bit. I love Rae and Bob's suggestion for reaching out personally. I've started to reach out to our members via the phone. Some of you have received phone calls from me. I get very few done during the day because we're having long conversations. And I'm so proud of everyone because I feel that they've all been very positive, even through the struggles that they're having. But it's been a way for us to connect with folks and just, checking in. How are you doing? how can we help? And sometimes those are hour-long conversations, and it's, you know, talking about their family, talking about the stress they're feeling, but just letting us know how we need to help too. So Lexi and I are here to help you in any capacity that we're able to. Again, we probably don't have the answers to all of your questions, most certainly not, but hopefully we can provide some clarity or connect you, you know, with someone that can help you. Any last things before we wrap up? I encourage you all to, if you're not getting our newsletters again and you want to, send an email. It is, my name is, if you have the pictures up there, you see my name, and it's just dschultz@boonechamber.org, or Lexi's is lbritt@boonechamber.org. But feel free to give us a call at the chamber office. Even though we're working remotely, we do get those voicemails, and we will return your call at you know, our earliest time that we can do that. And you can also, the webinars are posted on our website. It's boonechamber.org.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, Diane. And thanks, Lexi.
Thanks, Rae, for sharing your expertise with all of us. One thing I wanted to say, I know that link kind of has a worksheet type for folks, right, Rae?
Yes.
Okay, so, you know, what I'm asked a lot is, you know, people are busy. Even in these times, people are very busy. And, you know, just being dedicated to, you know, being a part of, whether it's an in-person meeting or a webinar, people want a purpose for that. People typically don't want to just go to a meeting to have a meeting, but they want to have some actionable items that they can put into practice to help their business or organization. So that's what we're trying to do. I think there's relevancy in any type of business in this, or any type of organization. There most certainly is relevant. So we encourage you to, you know, make that like a homework assignment. If you have kids at home doing homework, do homework at the same time with them. But I wanted to ask thoughts if all of you would like to have a follow-up webinar and just share some ideas of how you've addressed what we talked about today, come up with a little bit of a plan that you're implementing, you know, throughout COVID-19, but most importantly, how you're getting yourself ready to do business at the best ability you can once we're all back doing business as normally as we have in the past. Is that something that would interest folks to be able to share that information?
Yeah.
Feel free to unmute or send a chat, just to kind of give us a guideline. And again, if there's additional information that Rae spoke about, you know, send her an email, give her a call, and stay tuned. We have everyone's email, so we'll let you know of all those webinars. And I see like yeses coming in. So I think, Rae, that's a good indication that you and I will look at a date in the next couple of weeks, you know, maybe that last week of April. We're still going to be working remotely that last week of April. So let's kind of plan on that, and we'll let everyone know when that date is scheduled.
Yeah. And I want to stress, you know, even if you have an easy question, hey, I'm thinking about doing an email and I'm looking at MailChimp versus Constant Contact, just contact me and ask. I use both, so there's pros, there's cons, you know, we can get as detailed as that if you like.